Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from BoardGameCo, and it's time for another week in review. As usual, covering news, what I played, the whole week last week with all the stuff, plus whatever other things I choose to talk about, which there's usually something, and there is going to be something this week as well. Not a big deal. It's never a big deal. It's just games at the end of the day. But to begin with, first of all, it's been a fun week for me because my toddler, my 1.5-year-old, closer to 2 actually, almost 2 years old. Geez, my almost 2-year-old, we moved beds with him this week, which means we took him out of his own private room and put him into a room with his brothers into a open bed, so he's no longer confined to a crib. Those of you who are parents know that that is always a fun week. We've done that with 3 children now. This is our 4th. It's basically a week of losing, a good 30 to 45 minutes of your day while you try to encourage your child to voluntarily stay in the thing that he has otherwise been confined to for bedtime. Night 1 went great. Kind of forgot that he could leave, but nights 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 have required a lot of convincing and sitting around while we let him know that, yes, you now have the choice to leave your crib. We'd still rather you don't. Also, we've had a child wandering into our room at 1 o'clock in the morning to wake us up because he can do that now. So, it's been a fun week, all things considered. Less sleep, more interruptions, but all part of the joy of parenting. And I mean that, by the way, the joy of parenting to me. Like, we live in this interesting world. Like, lots of people don't want to have kids, which, fine, your choice. Lots of people have kids and are frustrated with them. For me, kids are like everything else. It's a package deal. Like, there's moments of frustration. There's moments of, I can't believe I have to deal with this, or I can't just go out. My wife and I want to go on vacation together. We have to, find a babysitter. Do you know how easy that was to do in the past year during COVID? It's not easy. We didn't go on our vacation last year. We had a once-a-year vacation. We go to Ravenwood Castle, and we just hang out and play games and watch movies for a few days. But we couldn't do that this past year because we couldn't get a babysitter. And also, things were shut down as well. But the world is, not to compare, my lack of vacation to the problems people have gone through COVID. But the general idea is raising kids is a fascinating thing with a lot of costs. But overall, I like the package deal. It's like living in Cleveland, which is where I live. The way I always put it is having kids like living in Cleveland. Sometimes the weather sucks, but there's nowhere else I'd rather live. So yeah, kids and moving beds. But that aside, moving on to news and stuff, things that are unrelated. That's why coffee, by the way. Coffee is always appreciated in that sense. Moving on to news, so small things, first of all, and it's not a big news segment this week compared to last week, we had a ton of things. First of all, ISS Vanguard, ISS Vanguard's here, we'll talk about that later, but the Nemesis is going to be reopening their pledge manager. I know they're reopening their pledge manager for you to add things for Wave 2 shipping. I don't know yet if they're opening it for new people. I'll update you more when I have more information on that. We have The Hunger. The Hunger is a new game coming up from Richard Garfield. I believe it's with Renegade. I have to double check. But either way, it's going to be a deck building, push your luck game of vampire stuff and whatnot. Art looks great. I like deck building. I like push your luck. I like deck building, push your luck, because it means you can not only push your luck, but push your luck within what you've built, what you've engineered, as opposed to pushing your luck in someone else's system. So I like the combination, and I've generally liked Richard Garfield games. Don't love all of them, but I would say they have done a decent job at doing well in my collection, sometimes staying for a few years, sometimes I still own them. Bunny Kingdom is great. Kingdom Tokyo was great for a few years, and I moved on from it. So, it's going to be a lot of different varieties over there. Catan 3D. I didn't talk about this 3 weeks ago. I should have talked about it 3 weeks ago. I just kept forgetting to add it to my list. But Catan is coming out with a new 3D version of their game for $300 or $330. I can't remember, one of those two. They should have put on a Kickstarter, because Kickstarter, they could have done stretch goals and add-ons and all these things, and it could have been a multi-million-dollar campaign. Speaking of multi-million-dollar campaigns, moving on to The Witcher. The Witcher, which we'll talk about more in this video when we talk about, the videos of the week. But The Witcher is incredibly impressive. You know what? Actually, let's talk about it later when I talk about the videos of the week. So we'll talk about The Witcher later. But it's breaking records. We'll come to that. From there, we have BGGCon. BGGCon is a go for November. They officially confirmed. They are good to go. That means we're now starting to see really the introduction of cons. We have Gen Con is officially going. We have Origins is as of now officially coming. We have Dice Tower announced that they have their thing going. I can't remember if it's Cruise. I can't remember if they're doing Cruise or not the Cruise, but they have something officially going at BGGCon. So we're starting to see the world reopen. I will hope to go to some of these. I don't know which ones I'm going. Gen Con, I know I'm not going to. Origins, I hope to be at. And we'll just take it one step at a time. For me, the biggest balance is, going back to what I talked about already, the biggest balance is kids. I will not leave my wife alone with the children unless she is 100% okay with it, meaning she has help, she has whatever. I'm not just trouncing off of 4 days with leaving her with 4 kids. She does enough already, so that's a balance there. And then alternatively, I'd like to go to vacations. I'd like to go to con with my wife as like a little vacation or whatnot, but that requires a babysitter. So my biggest constraint is going to be my children and just managing that. Things will be easier next year, 2 years. Right now, a 2-year-old is still the biggest burden in the house. We have a 9-year-old, a 7-year-old, and a 6-year-old. They are all mostly self-managed. They're still children. They require adult attention, but they can be left alone on their own. As opposed to our house, every day this is how it works. We clean our house, and then at the end of the day, we have to re-clean our house because we should have cleaned it 14 times in between, as my youngest walks around the house opening things, dumping things on the floor, and just generally just causing a complete ruckus around him. So once he's older, it should be a little easier to go to more conventions. For right now, it's still going to be me sparingly picking them, ensuring that I am not leaving my wife hanging when I go. So that's going to be convention stuff. Then there's a video from Ito, who, if you don't know his channel, he does reviews, he does topics, does those things. I'll link down below to the video in general, and you can subscribe to the channel. But effectively, he did a video with Rodney Smith from Watch It Played, and roughly 33 minutes in fact, I'll link to it at the current time, so you can pop straight into the segment I'm talking about. I found it fascinating listening to Rodney Smith go through the process he has for reviewing a game, for teaching, doing a how to play video on a game, from, accepting which games he accepts, which ones he doesn't, then the process of going through the rulebook, seeing if it's a fit for him, then going through the BGG forums and then checking which questions come up from people and seeing if those were in the rulebook, not in the rulebook. Was it missed? Did the person just completely miss it? Was it obvious? Was it there but a little bit less obvious and could have been written clearer? Or was it just completely missing? Then checking back with the designer to clarify his questions as well as questions on the forums. It was such an interesting process that I never really thought through just how much work goes into Rodney Smith doing his videos. Now, I always knew it was a lot of work, don't get me wrong, but I didn't realize how much work. There were extra steps I never anticipated. In fact, one thing I anticipate doing at some point on my channel is a video going through my process, what it takes from start to finish to get a video out. Some are easier than others, but they all require a process. They all have behind the scenes stuff. Editing is actually on the low end of what I do, but coming up with the cliff notes, coming up with the bullet points, coming up with reviews. Right now, I have a good 20 reviews I have to do. Games I've played, I'm already ready to review them, but I have to come up with the general notes. Yes, I talk off the cuff or whatever. I go through just talking, no edits, no cuts, none of that stuff. But I still have bullet points because I'm not walking in completely blind. I've tried it before. They're usually a little messier when I do completely blind with no pre-thought to general highs and lows. And also the last thing I want to do, and I hate it has happened before as well. I hate when I do a review and then after I'm like, oh, I missed that. Now, especially if it's a negative point and I missed it. So for instance, just giving you one random note. Wild Ascent is a game I reviewed. I love that game. Great game. But I completely forgot to give a note, a genuine criticism of the game, that the setup and teardown from campaign to campaign basically involves you taking notes. There's no real ideal storage system for managing your hero's health or any of these things. It's basically you grabbing a pen and paper and taking notes of where everyone left off. And they didn't even give you the pen and paper or the pad to do that, so you have to come up with it yourself. So that's a ding against the game. Does it stop it from being a 5 for me? No. But is it a ding against the game that as a reviewer I should have let you know? Absolutely I should have. So yeah, there's a lot of thought that goes into my reviews of trying to come up with the criticisms, trying to think through all the points that made it a game that wasn't for me or might not be for you. And that's work that goes behind the scenes before it, in addition to playing and all those things. But the point is, all the videos require, but Rodney Smith's videos in general, my own, anyone's videos, there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff that you don't necessarily see that goes into it. That is going to be everything in the news segment. Which brings us to the topic for the week. The topic for the week is going to be Rahdo being a shill and the nature of publisher relationships. Now, not to call Rahdo a shill, that's not what's happening here. But was I called a shill? Or am I using my own word? No, I was called Rahdo, jokingly, but I was called Rahdo, so was Quackalope. And then I saw another thing in Discord in general about the nature of these self-serving publisher content creator relationships. Because whether you're getting paid or not, there's a degree of just in general being incentivized to gush and love every single thing. And let's talk about that for a bit. So it's something that I've talked about before. I will talk about it again. I guarantee it. It's something that's going to always come up throughout the life of the channel. But in general, the general idea is, so Rahdo, to give context here, the reason Rahdo is being called a Rahdo, so to speak, is Rahdo is always positive in his videos. Always. He's straight up positive. It's there. If you see Rahdo cover a game, you already know he's going to gush and say nice things about the game. That's just, it's inherent. It's taken with the review process. But Rado has addressed that, and he's addressed that as that, and he does do paid coverage, so take that into account as well, and he covers that, he says it loud and clear at the beginning of each video, but he has covered the fact in the past that he doesn't take on games he doesn't like. He doesn't want to be negative, he doesn't want to trash things, he doesn't want to whatever, so he only covers the games he likes. Simple win-win solution. Now, it is a win-win solution to a degree, but it also means that he's just always positive, completely positive, gushing about things. It takes away a little bit from the experience of, okay, great, I want someone to be more critical about games, because we all want people to be more critical about games. We need people to tell us which games not to buy. But that brings us to the nature of why was I and Quackalo both called a Rado, so to speak. And the reason is, well, for myself, I covered this already. I anticipated this coming, because that's why in like last week's video, or 2 weeks, or the past few weeks, I've been talking about how, yes, I have given 4 5 out of 5s in recent weeks. Also, that's just been a busy month. I gave 3 5 out of 5s the entire first 5 months of the year. So basically, I did some stats in my videos, and the short version is that roughly 10%, roughly 9%, I think, of my videos have a 5, roughly 9% of my reviews are given a 5 out of 5. So it's decent, it's high, it's not like it's not, I'm not saying it's like 2% of the time, it's a decent amount of the time, but it's also not every single video. It just happens to be May has been a very, very good month for games. And 6 Siege, by the way, came this close to being a 5 out of 5 as well. I'm almost happy, and to a bad point, by the way, to a negative degree, I'm almost incentivized not to give it a 5 because I don't want to continue giving things 5. It hurts my voice if I love everything. It hurts, even if it's true. If I genuinely play 20 games that are amazing, that they're incredible, they are the best games, it's going to make you look at my reviews as being gushing and shill and positive and all that. And that's reasonable. I mean, you should, if I start doing everything a 5. Doesn't matter how true it is, it's the nature of stats and assumptions. But so yeah, so there's been a positive run of games. So I anticipated this happening because I've been positive with things, and I covered my stats, my reviews, and Crackle did the same thing. Jesse, when after he played 6 Siege and he gave that one a 5, he was like totally into it. I was very into it, don't get me wrong. I just, at the same time, there's a degree of, I am hesitant to believe that it'll hit the table as often as I think it needs to for me to really benefit from the system it is. I think it's a great system, could grow over time, we'll see. Could grow to a 5 for me over time, but we'll see. But anyway, Jesse as well was also like, oh my gosh, I gotta stop loving these games. I've loved a whole bunch of games recently, and I'm talking about those, and yeah, people are gonna start saying, he loves everything. And it's even more complicated with him because he does have these publisher relationships where he does take money from publishers for other videos. The videos where he gives his opinion, by the way, he does not take money from publishers for those. That's a separate thing, but he does have a publisher relationship. He's not getting paid for a review, he's getting paid for, let's say, a gameplay. The review is his own choice because he loves the game. If he doesn't love the game, he won't do a review with me. Remember Primal? Primal was a game. Actually, did he do a review of Primal? I don't think so. No, Primal I did my own review. Yeah, Primal I did my own review. Primal was one where he and I played it together, and he did the gameplay, and he gave his thoughts, and he was okay with it. He liked it, but he didn't love it. And so he chose not to do a review of it because he wasn't as invested in the property. So we all have that aspect of being a shill, so to speak. Now, going to the nature of the publisher relationships aspect, because I think that's the bias, meaning in order to doubt my voice, you have to see bias. If I just love everything, then that's not entirely true. You could doubt my voice for one of 2 reasons. One is because I just love everything. I'm just way too positive and I don't see the negative, in which case, bias or not, I'm just not worth listening to. Alternatively, number 2 would be because if I have a bias towards being overly positive, then that will also make it not worth listening to. So let's address that bias. There's 3 biases, in my opinion, 3 general biases. One of them is going to be money, which I generally don't take. I've taken money one time from a publisher in terms of Endless Winter for a Pledge Manager walkthrough, and even that I half regret because, not because I care about the bias aspect, but because taking, a few $100 one time will make people skeptical in the future. So it's unfortunate. I almost regret taking that. But taking money from publishers is going to be one degree of bias that people have to be mindful of. The second aspect is going to be just generally liking people. And this is the one I always talk about. If I've talked directly face-to-face with someone who's given me their game, who's entrusted me with their game, it doesn't matter who it is. It doesn't matter if it's a large company or a single entity. I don't want to say, by the way, I covered your game and wasn't for me. I just did that this past week. I just gave a game a 2 this past week, and then I had a talk. The designer reached out to me on Facebook and started talking to me about it. And did you try it this way? Did you do that? And I no problems with the designer at all. I'm fine with him doing that. It's just, it is uncomfortable. There's a degree of bias in just not wanting to have a conversation with someone who entrusted you with their design, and then having to say, hey, By the way, it didn't like it, but not only did I not like it, I told a whole bunch of people that I didn't like it. It's not a comfortable thing, and that does introduce a degree of bias. So that's bias number 2. Bias number 3 is going to be the idea that a publisher may not send you games in the future if you trash their game. So for instance, let's take, what's a good game? Let's take Steamforged Games, Monster Hunter World, okay? That's a game I gave a 4 to 5. Really enjoyed it. Not as much as Primal, had some more complaints, but still thought it was a solid system. Now, what if I had taken Steamforged Games and said, it's terrible, it's this, it's that, it's a 2 out of 5, I can't believe it, I'd never play this game again. Well, I mean, then practically speaking, I don't think they'd send me their next prototype. And reasonably so. They should be wary of people who are trashing their games. Now, a really on their game publisher, someone who's really on their game, will still send out prototypes to people who trash their games. And some do. To their credit, some do. Many won't. Many are like, oop, too much of a risk with that guy. He's a little too critical for us. And so it's a real risk of, okay, great, we won't get games. Now, when it comes to production games, I don't care about that. But when it comes to prototypes, I certainly do. Do you know why? Because I can buy a production game. I can't buy a prototype. I can buy another game. The relationship I have with publishers and the relationship I have with the audience, it's not worth sacrificing the relationship with you. It's not worth sacrificing the trust that you give me for a $30 game. But I can't get a prototype if I don't have that relationship. So it's a lot more nuanced and interesting there. Which is why, by the way, in general, not across the board, but in general, I am 100%, and this is the part where you should understand things, I am 100% more mindful of being critical of a Kickstarter preview and prototype than I am of a final game. Because the final game I can always get. The market, it's available on the market, it's not a problem. Versus getting a prototype, getting something from a publisher, if I constantly am giving them a hard time, I do run the risk of not getting prototypes, and that is arguably a problem for both me and you. Because that means I can't be critical of things. Which is why my general approach for prototypes is if I believe that my coverage is too damaging, if I believe that it is a game I really didn't like. Now, for context, by the way, this has happened like 3 times in the channel, so it's not like a common occurrence. But I will reach out to the publisher and say, hey, this really wasn't for me. If you'd like, I just won't cover it. And generally they'll say, yeah, we'd rather you not cover it because that makes sense. Now, anything from good to great, I will cover. I'm still going to be critical. Look through my previews, my prototypes. I have plenty of Kickstarter games that I have been fairly critical of, given 3 out of 5. It's been like, hey, it's good here, it's bad here, it is what it is. That's because I can't exclusively, it's a balance, it's all a balance. I can't exclusively be positive. If I'm exclusively positive, I lose the audience. If I'm overly negative, I lose the publishers. So it is a balance of being negative, being true about the things I liked and didn't like, and trying to tell you accurately how I felt about the game. But if a game was really problematic, I am willing to walk away from it. I am willing to say, hey, listen, I could trash your game on camera, and I'm sure you'd love to know, by the way, but it's not worth the risk. Again, that one-time trashing might cost me my ability to be fairly critical about 3 other games in the future. So it absolutely is a balance. And it's a balance, by the way, that you might not agree with, and I respect that. But I'm making the choice of what I think is the best move forward. Now, ultimately, the first thing, to be very clear, is I absolutely prioritize the audience over the publishers. There's always more publishers. There's not always going to be more audience. The audience trusting what I say is always going to be so much more impactful to the growth of the channel than it is than publishers trusting with games, because there's always going to be another publisher. I have too many games to cover as it is. There's always someone else to send me a game. So the balance I tend to go for is I will be direct with you. I will be honest with you. But when it comes to trashing someone's game that's going on Kickstarter, that's the one leeway I grant myself of giving myself a little bit of room to say, I'm just not going to cover that. That's my approach to reviews and previews on the channel. Reviews, I just do reviews, but reviews of a game that's not out yet. So that is everything, which brings us to what I've played. And again, this topic will come up. It'll always come up. But what I've played, let's go through this. I got some random notes over here. Okay, let's go through what I've played in BGG Stats. I should always say this, by the way. I track games using BGG Stats or BG Stats. I think it's BG. Board Game Stats, BG Stats. And let's go through what I've played. So, to begin with, let's see where I am. Okay, we got some more games of Mosaic in. Mosaic, which I already did my review of, which led to... So Mosaic in particular is interesting, because Mosaic, there's a lot of people online on BoardGameGeek complaining about flaws in the game. Flaws that I barely talked about, because I talked about how I felt military was unbalanced, but a lot of these other flaws I didn't experience in my plays of Mosaic. And I had like one comment accusing me of being an absolute publisher shill for Mosaic because I loved the game. I'm sorry, I love the game. I can't help you there. I really enjoyed it. And in fact, I was done with my review already, and my friend came back the next day and was like, hey, let's play Mosaic again. So we did, because I like that game. I can't help the fact that I missed some of the... Arguably, there were a lot of critiques about balance and things in the game, and they're still, the publisher's still addressing and designing and things around that. Some of those I didn't really experience. Some of them I just weren't problems for me. But the one of military being a little underpowered, I commented on the review. I did feel that was a little unbalanced. I think technology probably is a must-go-to. You can't avoid technology, but I think that's inherent. That's the giant stack of cards in the game. I didn't think that was a flaw. I think that's by design. But yeah, Mosaic. So publisher shill for that one. Terraforming Mars. Terraforming Mars got to play. Oh my gosh, Terraforming Mars is so ridiculously good. I owe my patrons a review of it, but I mean, it'll be on the general channel, but they chose it a long time ago. But basically, Terraforming Mars, first play with the big box. Kudos to the big box, by the way. Really helped the accessibility of the game. I was worried, like, I put everything into the big box, and I kept my old box in case I have to sell or trade the big box. If the big box and the Deluxified tiles in any way made the game harder to play, I would have gotten rid of it. Big box games are awesome, but sometimes they make a game harder to play. You get too much content and it's harder to table that game. In the case of Terraforming Mars, it made it easier to table, solid insert, well designed, really enjoyed it, and it's such a ridiculously good game. By the way, the reason I love Mosaic is because it feels like Terraforming Mars Lite, just for the record. It doesn't feel like a Civ game, it feels like Terraforming Mars Lite. It feels like the game I will play when I have half the time. Expect, when Mosaic has a finished copy coming, production copy down the road, expect to play this, not that, between the two games, covering the differences with the finished game. So, let's see. That's a general thing I go for. I don't want to review games twice, even if I have the game, and then later I have the finished game. Or in the case of Isis Vanguard, I have the prototype, the next prototype, and then the finished game. So in general, I will be aiming for different types of coverage when I have to review a game again that I covered in the prototype stage. So like, review versus a play that's not that. Or review versus I'm sure I can find other formats. I can steal Jesse's formats. Right for you, wrong for you on ISS Vanguard. I should do that. I'm totally going to do that now. Okay, Tiny Ninjas. I got Tiny Ninjas to the table. It's one of the games that was on the table last week. One of the games I was hoping to table. I got Tiny Ninjas to the table. Played with my son. Really enjoyed it. Don't know if I'll be doing a review on it. We'll see. Grand Carnival. I will have, I need to get some more plays on it first, but overall, we got that to the table. Really enjoyed it. We'll have a review or possibly a play this, not that with Baron Park. I haven't decided, but one of those two coverages. Ruthless. Got a bunch of games of Ruthless in. You've already seen that. Why do I feel like I'm missing half the games? Did I log everything? There's no way I logged everything from this week because I'm missing like so many games. Got another play of Cthulhu Death May Die in. We got that. So that was doing a series, like I said already. I think I said this last week. I'm playing through Cthulhu Death May Die for the channel and through the Patreons. The first one will be on the general channel. The second one will be Patreon exclusive. And I'm going through the general campaign as Patreon exclusive. Got in a few plays of Buru. Buru is a game that we'll have a review of later today. And that looks like it. That's like a really low week. That's like 10 games this week. Not even. Wow, did I not play things this week? I feel like I didn't log things this week because it's rare that I don't play that much. I'm going to have to think through what I'm missing in terms of what I've played. But either way, I guess that's all I have for right now because I can't recall offhand what else I got to the table. Oh my gosh, it's going to bug me. There's no way I only played like 8 or 9 games. Anyways, so from there, moving on to the week in review part, the what happened last week, all that stuff. To begin with, Saturday were reviews for Soundbox, Mosaic, and Six Siege. So Soundbox is a game that I give a 3 out of 5. It's a standard party game. Enjoyed it, had fun with it. I think if you like standardized party games, then it's great. I think if it's a little chaotic, it's a little bit of a noisy chaoticness, it's one I'm happy to play, not one I'm seeking out, honestly. From there we have Mosaic. Mosaic is one that, I love Mosaic. We covered this already multiple times in this video. I love Mosaic. I'm actually going all in. I'm not getting the playmat because I don't do playmats as often, but I am getting the deluxe pledge past the playmat. Looking forward to that. And the Kickstarter seems to be adding a lot of things, hopefully addressing some of the minor critiques, but even if the game I played were its final form, I would happily continue to play it. Six Siege was a great game. Really enjoying Six Siege. My biggest critique is at 2-player games like that, I find I don't play them enough to really enjoy them. I want to play them. I hope that Six Siege is a game I'll play more. If it weren't a 2-player game, it would be a 5 for me. If there was some element of, and there is a 4-player version, but it seems like the rules I've seen for 4-player are you control 2 operatives each, and then you share control of 1 person. That doesn't sound appealing to me. It doesn't sound appealing to me at all. I'm not saying it's not good. Maybe it's amazing. It doesn't sound appealing. I am instinctively averse to that version of, in general, when you have these team games, like Rum and Bones is the same thing. Like, and I love Rum and Bones. Love it. Great game. Six Siege is going to be joining the ranks of Rum and Bones for me. A very, very solid 2-player game that I table like once a year, which is not the way I think Six Siege should be played. That's why for me as a 4. Perhaps that'll change. We'll see. Maybe I'll just play games with Jesse all the time. I don't know. He likes that game. I like that game. Anyways, that was Six Siege, 4 to 5. From there we have Sunday. Oh boy, this is a fun one. Sunday was, should The Witcher have female characters? And basically, the short version is that was, I think it was my most commented video ever, excluding ones that had giveaways attached. And it's a very passionate subject with passionate people on both sides. It's a longer conversation. I may have a full follow-up video at some point going through various replies. Lots of replies I'd love to address, lots of questions, lots of points that I think are interesting to go through on both sides. The funny thing about this video is I'm too left-leaning for people who are like hardcore right, and I'm too right-leaning for people who are hardcore left. As I said, in the middle. And then there's people on both sides saying that the middle is the wrong place to be. Alex, if you are the middle, then you're denying females representation, you are anti-female, you're the worst person ever. Well, I'm exaggerating with the worst person ever, but I have people who genuinely are attacking me for taking a middle stance on the idea that female representation should be in games. Which I think, to be very clear, I'm not taking a middle stance on female representation in games. I'm taking a middle stance on specifically The Witcher. That's where I'm taking a middle stance. Of course there should be females in games. It's a crazy question. And then the second part is I'm in the middle too far for people who are like, no, you can't give in to the SJW woke mob. Yeah, how dare you, Alex? If you give in here, you're going to give in there. You're going to keep the line's never going to end. I don't think those people realize that there are more dragons and aliens and monsters on the covers of game boxes than there are women. Okay, women, this is not a conversation about giving into the SJW woke mob. This is a conversation of sometimes the quote-unquote SJW woke mob has a reasonable point, and you have to, if you want to be able to challenge someone when you think they're wrong, then you have to critically analyze when they might be right. If you just say no all the time, then you're just saying no all the time. If you listen and think and process and decide in each instance which one you think is reasonable, which one you think isn't, then we can have a conversation. If you just deny everything as that mob, well, I mean, whatever. So again, I'm just, getting people from both sides. Fortunately, honestly, the video has only a 10% dislike ratio, which I thought would be much worse because it's a heated topic with unfortunately no clear answer that makes everyone happy. But that was Sunday's video. Monday was to back or not to back. So first of all, I'll be talking about this next Monday as well. Small mistake in that video. I compared Fall of the Mountain King to In the Hall of the Mountain King in terms of the market price on the second when it hits retail. I said, oh, In the Hall of the Mountain King is a $35 game, so will Fall of the Mountain King be at some point? And someone pointed out that yeah, that's not true entirely because Fall of the Mountain King has like a $15 higher MSRP than in the Hall of the Mountain King, so it's likely closer to going to be to like more the $45 price point, which is a fair point. Again, keep in mind, I was for backing it either way, but that said, I still want my information to be accurate, and I compared the two as being equitable because their price point in the new Kickstarter for the deluxe versions is equitable, but I wasn't looking at the MSRP. I was a little too instinctive or quick on that one, and I was wrong. So I'll be covering that with an update on Monday as well. But the short version is that, I mean, basically, I still think you should back the Kickstarter, but if you are waiting for retail, understand that it's probably a $45 game, not a $35 game. Past that, I really recommend Ruthless. Ruthless is a great game. One of those games that completely surprised me. I thought it was going to be a passable, just another small deck builder that no one pays attention to, but I gave it a 4 to 5. I really enjoyed the combo chaining in that game. It's one that I want to get to the table again. To be very clear, I like it a lot with the expansion. I can't comment on the base game alone since I never had a full game base game alone. But from what I can see, just assuming whatever, I liked it a lot. And so that was one that, I gave a review on Tuesday. Speaking of Tuesday was 3 reviews. Arackhan Wars, Ruthless, and Keystone playthrough and review. Keystone North America. Arackhan Wars, very short version of it is, I really enjoy it. It's a solid game in the genre it's trying to be, which is a 2-player card game. It's amazing art, lots of fun tactics. It's one I'm happy to play. Also, it's still a 2-player card game, which for me, those ones have had a harder time staying in my collection in general, just because if you're going to build a deck, for instance, I mean, it has deck building in it, deck construction, and I want deck construction, but I'll deck construct knowing the game better than other players in my group, or if I'm playing against Rena, you know, and I played it 7 times, she's played it twice. Deck construction games and competitive games have a harder time sticking around in my collection. It's why I love Marvel Champions, because that's cooperative. So if my deck is better than yours, it doesn't matter as an aggregate working as a team. So yeah, it still suffers from that flaw, which is why it's a 3 out of 5. I'm interested in it. I'm curious whether it'll stay, but I am skeptical it will, just the nature of those games. From there we have Ruthless. Ruthless is one that, well, like I said already, 4 out of 5, absolutely in my collection. Really enjoyed it. I'm a little sad that it doesn't have a larger audience, because that means this is probably the last expansion we'll see, and I'd love to see more legendary pirates if nothing else. I want more legendary pirates. I think there are only like 5 in the game. I want that to be like 15, because that would be fun. But and more quests and more everything in that game. And then Keystone North America playthrough and review with Rena. That one's currently on Kickstarter from Rose Gauntlet Entertainment, and I really enjoyed that one as well. That was one that it reminded me of Canvas to a degree. I gave Keystone a 4 out of 5. Canvas, by the way, is one that I gave a 3 out of 5 in my review, and it's a 4 out of 5. I mean, we'll be doing, you know, review updates over time, but Canvas grew quickly. I played it a bunch of times, did the review, and then it just, the more I played it, the more I enjoyed it. It's a lightweight game. It is, but I don't care. I really, really enjoy it. And so Keystone North America also got the same treatment for me. If I had to choose one, I would probably choose Canvas, but they have a lot of overlap in their gameplays, and I think Keystone North America does enough different that I'm eager to add that one to my collection. From there we have Wednesday. Wednesday was The Witcher, all the updates. So this is the part where we talk about the record-breaking aspect of The Witcher. The Witcher currently, at the time of this writing, is about to cross 7 million as of right now, at the time of this recording. It's about to cross 7 million. That's insane. That alone already puts it as, I believe, the 4th or 5th highest, puts us the 5th highest Kickstarter, with, we have Nemesis Lockdown above it, then Exploding Kittens, then Kingdom of the Monster, then Frosthaven. Okay, so for context here, let's go through this, because that means that we have, well, 4 to go. Now, Nemesis Lockdown will break when we cross 7,300,000, and we will. So it's going to be the 4th highest. Exploding Kittens will break when you cross 8.7 million, if I'm not mistaken. I have to double check the numbers. That's going to be, maybe it's 8.3. Whatever it was, it's a full million ahead at least, which that one it may not break. Now, the interesting thing is, if you combine Zagram.to, whatever it is, the Polish site, then it will beat the Exploding Kittens. So you can't, it's going to be tricky. It depends on how you count that, but technically it's already beating it if you count the funding of both sites combined. And then the part that makes it even more of a record setter, so if you think about it, is the other 2 IPs in front of it. Once you cross Exploding Kittens, the other 2 IPs or games are Frosthaven and Kingdom of the Monster, both of which were the second Kickstarters for that game. So this would be, once you combine those sites, again, we're stretching a few things, but once you combine the 2 sites and count it as whatever, then it will be the highest funded first version of a game ever. Period. Ever. Again, you might have to break some little rules with the whole combining of Zagram, because otherwise Exploding Kittens would be the highest funded first version of a game. But that's impressive. It's very impressive. Very happy for Go on board. But yeah, this video on Wednesday was all the updates. Also, speaking of records, I have to double check my numbers. I think that The Witcher All the Updates is my highest ever viewed video on day 1. I have to double check. There's one other that might have been the highest. I have to double check against it. But that is my highest day 1 video ever, which I'm pretty sure it's the highest day 1 ever video ever. So I got my own little record out of it. Yay me. Then Thursday. Thursday is games leaving the collection. A bunch of fun games as usual. Right now I'm filming this Thursday morning, so I can't overly comment on the video yet. But yeah, games leaving the collection was another thing for May. I can't remember what was in it. What did I put in it? I can't remember. I put a Magic Maze in there. I put in a bunch of stuff. Either way, you watch the video, or you should watch the video after. All fun stuff. Magic Maze is great, by the way. Easy recommendation, but I've played through it all multiple times, and I'm ready to move on from it. Then we have Friday. Friday was Play This, Not That, with Winter Kingdom and Kingdom Builder. Winter Kingdom versus Kingdom Builder. Short version of that one is Kingdom Builder is leaving my collection. You could and Winter Kingdom is staying, but you could watch the video for more information there. And then I'm 90% sure, I'm not 100% sure, I'm 90% sure that later that day we had a Black Rose Wars unboxing. Again, wibbly wobbly, timey wimey. I am talking in the future about things that haven't happened yet, so the Black Rose Wars unboxing, there's a small chance I didn't do it later that day, but I think I did. We'll find out together, I guess. And then that brings us to today. Today, speaking of wibbly wobbly timey wimey, at 12 o'clock there will be one review, and at 2 o'clock there'll be another review. I do not know what they are yet. Buru is going to be one of those 2. The other one, I'm not sure yet. There's a few options on the table. I have to film some stuff tonight, so we'll see. It might be Cat Lady from AEG. It might be Bullet. There's a few options. I just need to look through my list of stuff and then choose one that I need to get a review to the table of, and then do that. So hopefully that will happen soon. Which brings us to later next week, coming up. Next week we will have the What I Backed in May video that I filmed with Rena. Lots of fun as usual. She made me back 3 games that I didn't back before, so blame her for that, not me. But, I mean, so we both want games. Both of us want games when we do these videos. But I don't look at it as getting a game or not. I look at it as getting a game now or later if I want the game. She looks at it more as getting the game or not. So we backed a few, which, listen, it is what it is. That's the worst thing that I complain about, you know. So we backed 3 extra games because she chose them. And then from there, we will have a video later next week, I'm pretty sure it'll be next week, of basically 30-second reviews across a whole bunch of games. My Patreons gave me a laundry list of like 70 games or something like that to give initial thoughts on. Those initial thoughts range from never heard this to didn't like it to love it in my collection, whatever it is. It's literally just my thoughts on titles they asked me to cover, and that's like a 45-minute long video as I go through as quickly as possible a lot of different games. And that is everything. Speaking of longer videos, this is a longer weekend review than I thought it would be, but I guess that's the whole topic of, you know, reviews and bias and mutually beneficial relationships, all that stuff in general. Well, not in general. I'm Alex Radcliffe from BoardGameCo. Hope you enjoy your weekend. Have some fun. Oh, these games. I always do this. The games I'm playing this week. So, ISS Vanguard prototype. This is the second prototype. I hope to get to this table as soon as possible. It's going to be hard to jump into this one because I have to, like, this is the part where it's a little bit annoying because I've played through the game. Now I'm going to play through the game again, and then when I get it, I'm going to play through the game again, which is a little bit tedious, but I'll do it. But effectively, this is the ISS Vanguard prototype round 2. I'll be going through this hopefully soon. Hopefully it's next week. I don't know if I'll have coverage this next week. I need to go through it all properly. We'll see. Then I hope to play Athenium Mystic Library with my wife. We'll see if that happens. I got a few roll-in rights. Almost knocked my list over. We have a few roll-in rights from Queen Games. We have Copenhagen. We have Escape, and also upstairs I have Alhambra roll and write. I'd love to play those with Rena this next week. Won't be on Saturday because it has writing. And then I also really need to get Assassin's Creed to the table. This has been on my shelf for a few weeks now, and I need to get some coverage of that going. So that's the stuff that I hope to play shortly. We will see what actually hits the table. Either way, until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from BoardGameCo, and have a good one.